Good YouTube, this is the Texans Better Talk Show coming at you with more content. This is going to be a quick video. I already uploaded a video on potential tight ends the Houston Texans could draft, but I figured I'd come back to the offensive coordinator search. I made a video about this earlier before we knew all the information. I made a list of my top candidates, and now I'm going to revisit that list, this time only looking at candidates that the Texans have interviewed. And we'll talk about Chip Kelley. He will not be on the list because he has not been interviewed. But if you like Texans content, you're a Texans fan or just a fan of the NFL, don't forget to like and subscribe. Really helps me out, really keeps me going, and I appreciate all the support we've been getting lately. So let's talk about it. Ranking Texans offensive coordinator candidates that the Houston Texans have interviewed. These people obviously have the best chance to become the offensive coordinator because they've been interviewed as of Thursday, January 30th. So there's 5 candidates that have been interviewed, and let's start talking about in last place. In last place, we have an internal hire, Bill Lazor. Now, Bill Lazor has spent a majority of his time in the NFL, coaching around 16 seasons in the NFL, so he has that going for him, a lot of experience. He mainly is a offensive assistant and quarterback coach. Bill Lazor has also called 3 different offenses in the NFL, so he has a lot of experience. So you might be wondering, well, why is he this low on your list? Well, there's a couple of reasons. Number 1, no connection to CJ Stroud, unlike a different candidate I'll bring up. Number 2, the 3 offenses he called in the NFL were not great. They were not great offenses. They didn't look amazing. They weren't horrible dead last, but they were not very inspiring. The third reason why I do not want Bill Lazor to be the offensive coordinator is because he had a job when this offense was bad. He was here in the building when this offense is bad. That's a big reason why I don't want an internal candidate to be the Texans offensive coordinator. So Bill Lazor, sorry, 5th place for him. Moving right along to, you guessed it, another internal candidate, internal hire, Gerard Johnson. Now, I like Gerard Johnson slightly more than Bill Lazor, even though Gerard Johnson has no experience calling plays at any level, much less the NFL level. And why is that? Well, Gerard Johnson has recently attracted offensive coordinator roles. Last year, a lot of people reached out to him, and he did I think 5 or 6 interviews for different NFL teams for the offensive coordinator position. Ultimately got none, but stuck around with the Texans. This year, he only had 1 offensive coordinator interview with the Jets. I guess 2 if you include the Texans. What's there to like about Gerard Johnson? Well, he has familiarity with CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans quarterback and offense. He's been in the building, so I guess a pro of that is he knows CJ. He has that relationship with them. Another thing, too, is that CJ Stroud is often cited that Gerard Johnson has been the reason for some of his success. And that, to me, also kind of is troubling because CJ Stroud kind of regressed this year. So you maybe start to wonder, is Gerard Johnson also the reason why CJ Stroud has had a little bit of regression? And that leads me into the main reasons why I don't want Gerard Johnson to be this offensive coordinator. Excuse me, just touched on it, but really, he was in the building when this offense was bad, just like Bill Lazor. The quarterback got a lot worse compared to last year. He should be interviewing to keep his job, in my opinion, much less interviewing for the offensive coordinator role, which I know it sounds harsh, but that's just the reality when it comes to Gerard Johnson. So now we've got the 2 internal hires out of the way. Let's go into my number 3, my 3rd choice for the Texans offensive coordinator role. And that goes to Thad Lewis, another candidate they've interviewed. And you could make the argument that Gerard Johnson should, come in over Thad Lewis. I certainly see the appeal. Thad Lewis hasn't been coaching for a long time. He is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback coach, and he's only been their coach for, I believe, a year, maybe 2. And he's only been coaching for a few years. So his resume is paper thin. No experience calling plays. He was a quarterback that bounced around all over the NFL. He was a quarterback for Duke when Bill O'Brien was the offensive coordinator, ironically, and their passing offense was not great when he was there. And then he also had a short stint with the Houston Texans. They signed him after Ryan Mullet suffered a season-ending injury, if you remember that, back in, 2014. So he has ties with the organization. Again, the resume's a little thin. You really start to question, hey, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they have a vacant offensive coordinator spot. And yes, their head coach is going to be the one calling the plays, but really start to wonder, why wasn't Thad Lewis asked by the Bucks to interview for their offensive coordinator job? Does he really not like his job with the Bucks that much? Not sure. I think, in my opinion, there's another reason why the Texans potentially conducted this interview with Thad Lewis. Maybe they just want some more information. They want to kind of touch up on him, maybe down the road. I can't really give you another reason for why they would conduct this interview. I still have him ranked above an internal hire because, again, Baker Mayfield has played extremely well. A lot of people thought he was a lost cause. That's his quarterback coach. I mean, he played well in their playoff game. Their offense looks good, and their program constantly spits out head coaches like they just did with Liam Cohen, who's going to the Jacksonville Jags. So I trust their organization more than I trust this last year Texans organization, and that's pretty much why I have Thad Lewis at number 3. Now, when we get to the top 2, let's start talking about some realistic names, some names I would actually want to see become the Houston Texans offensive coordinator. Number 2, give me Jeff Nixon. Jeff Nixon, the current Syracuse offensive coordinator. Syracuse was the number 1 passing offense in all of college football this year. It doesn't get much better than that. He's 50 years old. He's a running back who played at West Virginia, transferred to Penn State. Then he coached all around the league, coaching quarterbacks, tight ends, running backs, offensive assistants. Had a short stint with Baylor when their offense looked really good, which I really like to see. Also went to Carolina. David Culley gets fired, and he takes over as the offensive coordinator, the interim offensive coordinator. Working with a bad Panthers team, they averaged around 21 points. If you don't count a game they got blown out where their quarterbacks threw 5 picks. So, look, when I'm watching the Syracuse offense, I really think that this guy has some stuff back in his playbooks. Like, I actually really like this candidate a lot more than I think most do, and I don't think you pull the fire alarm if the Texans choose to hire Jeff Nixon. He's a pass-first type of coordinator, which was surprising because he played running back and coached running backs first, but he loves passing the football. His concepts look good. There's always a lot of check down options that Kyle McCord could use. The offense is smooth. I rarely saw any penalties on the offensive side of the ball when I was watching Syracuse games. And yeah, that's good coaching. That's a direct component of that. So you could also make the argument that he has experience calling plays in the NFL, which a lot of these other candidates can't say. And again, I just really like the way that Syracuse offense works. Main concern would be, hey, how much of that actually translates to the NFL? And that's a very valid concern that you could have with Jeff Nixon. Now that we've talked about Jeff Nixon, let's get into a quick honorable mention. Guys, I know the fan favorite, my favorite option was Chip Kelley. At this point, I don't know if the Texans are even going to interview Chip Kelley. I don't know if he just doesn't want to leave Ohio State. That's very reasonable. That's a successful program. He just won a natty. Having him just win a natty kind of made me feel like, maybe he could try to go back to the NFL because he's kind of already, reached the top of the mountain in college. But it's a cush job. Maybe he likes it, doesn't want to leave. He's making good money there as well. So that's fine. He stays at Ohio State most likely. Maybe he declined an interview offer. Maybe the Texans themselves weren't interested in him. Whatever the reason, I don't think Chip Kelley is a candidate that you can really hang your hat on being a potential candidate for this Texans team. And that leads me to my number 1 choice to be this Texans offensive coordinator, Nick Kelley, the tight ends coach and pass game coordinator. Tight ends coach and pass game coordinator. Why do I like Nick Kelley so much? Sean McVay, the Rams. That's literally why I like Nick Kelley. A lot of the successful offenses in the NFL are offshoots of the McVay tree. The Vikings are a great example of that with Kevin O'Connell. McVay's offenses look really good. They put points on the board, and they really involve a lot of different positions and players that, the Texans offense last year is completely contrasted to that in terms of involvement and just the level of simplicity it was at. Also, CJ Stroud said himself, he watches the Rams offense. He enjoys watching their offense because of how well they operate. And look, Nick Kelley, he's never called plays before. He's never called plays, much less in the NFL before. So that is kind of a risk you're going to have to take. I will point out that he actually did turn down an offensive coordinator role with the Patriots. And the Patriots felt like they could entrust him to coach up Drake May because this was last year. So they were getting a new quarterback. They wanted Nick Kelley to be the guy with Drake May, be that offensive coordinator. Now, ultimately, he declined and he stayed with the Rams. So he's turned down an offensive coordinator role before. He wanted to learn more from Sean McVay. Also, I'll add on to it. McVay loves Kelley. McVay always praises him, says great things about him, says, the program, he's a really solid piece of the program. He's been learning a lot of stuff under McVay, and he actually just interviewed today, Thursday. It's currently 3:30, so I don't know if it's already happened yet. It probably has, but Nick Kelley would be my choice to be this next Texans offensive coordinator. Let's get that McVay system, that McVay tree in here, and let's just have a good offensive performance for all of the next season. But let me know, what do you guys think? Who is your favorite candidate? Who are you fond of? Who are you not fond of? Is there still hope for Chip Kelley? And finally, guys, I would just appreciate it if you could like and subscribe if you made it this far. Really helps me out, and I will see you guys in the next video. So that's all I got, man, and peace out.